Hey, good morning and welcome to Hot Topic. My studio guest this morning is none other than Rlene Steffy. Good morning, Prima. How you doing?
Fun day, Jess. Thank you for having me.
Balik ka todo?
Todo malik, todo malik.
Everything is good. That's good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Third season?
Third season currently on the air.
Wow.
2 in print.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You know, I just gotta say, I was talking to you before we got on, but what I really like about this, I like it or not, this is our DNA. Now, whether you like history or not, and maybe some people don't quite like certain times, certain things that we've been colonized and all that, but we is who we is, you know.
History is not pretty.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So tell us, take this from, a brief summary of 1 and 2, and going into season 3.
Well, season 1, the entire series is a highlight of what occurred from the European discovery in 1521 up to 1898, which is the Spanish-American War.
Sure.
Now, when Magellan came through here on his expedition to prove that the world was round, that was, I believe, a secondary purpose for Magellan. I don't think that was his primary purpose. His primary purpose was looking for spice, but it was an expedition to see what was out here and where the Spice Islands were, because that was a very coveted and very secretive route. And so when Spain decided to allow Portuguese explorer Magellan to circumnavigate the world, if it hadn't been for Guam, Jess, they would have died.
Sure.
This was a pivotal station for them. So location, Guam's geographic location has, in history, and to this present day,
that's
important.
Right.
Whether we like it or not, whether we were a coaling station, whether we were somewhere that just somebody stopped for water, water is essential to life. And so our being where we are in the course of history has placed us on the map. We don't have to do anything. We're there.
So world powers at the time, this was their stronghold. I mean, this basically, the powers that be at that time, okay.
That time,
there's no
current time, future time, we're always going to be a player.
There's no doubt that we will be colonized by them.
Well, colonization is not a bad word. You can make it a bad word if your interest is to exploit colonization's benefits or the negatives of colonization. Colonization only means that you're being governed by a country. Whether you're governed by the United States, whether you're governed by Russia, whether you're governed by Spain, you're just colonized in the sense that they're governing you. Now, it is true that this occurred worldwide. Because those who have power can do, right? If Chamorros had the power to colonize, we would have been out doing the same thing. But that wasn't our ability.
That's right.
So they come through here, and Magellan was not authorized to colonize. He was sent out on an expedition to find spices, to find circumnavigation, to prove it. Now, unfortunately, by the time he hit the Philippines, for his choice of his decisions, he got killed. I always tell people, if you're visiting somewhere, stay out of the politics, because that's a sure way to hell, right? You're not going to make it. You don't have the right, if you're visiting, to get involved. And that's one of the things that I used to tell John Anderson. I love John to death. He's a boss that has given me opportunities that have taken me to heights where I've been able to explore. But when you say you're a visitor on Guam, then act like a visitor. You don't get involved in the politics of things, because that's not what a visitor does, right? You don't go. I don't come to your house and stay the weekend and start getting involved in your personal affairs. That's not a right thing. That's not respectful. So Magellan had no authorization to colonize. However, by the time Legazpi came, his expedition was very different. It was to go and claim. Now, when they claim and then they disappeared. They claim and then they left. So, the colonization effort was not an overt action. There was very little to colonize on Guam at the point. It was really the Catholic mission that pressed on as we know in historical readings and documentation, it was San Vittori's purpose to catechize the natives because they were lost souls.
Sure.
Now that's a very noble, act. But it was through that colonization effort really escalated to the point that it became a colony of Spain.
Now, let me go back. Let me go back and ask you. You're talking about San Vittori's, and we know Calunsuc has been canonized. Okay, it's been.
He's a saint.
He's
now.
a saint. Yeah. Okay. But let me go back to that, and let me go back to that because of what has happening. What has happened right now within the church. Now,
you're going to correlate the two?
Well, yeah, I'm going to correlate it because it had to have a start in the beginning in regards to what has happened to altar boys here and all that. Okay.
I don't think it has anything to do with that.
No, I mean something had to start, and in the old boys club, in that, right, in the protection of their clergymen, I guess, and all that. Calunsuc was a very young boy. They said he was a devoted individual to the church, and he was, I guess, very loyal to San Vittori's. Was there more to that, or just because we hear about boys now, and back then, of course, they were. I mean, when we were growing up, there's a different era between then and now, and back then more so than when we were growing up. So was there a correlation between younger boys and older church clergy people kind of thing?
Well, I know that, for instance, as a Jehovah's Witness, I read the Bible, and people have claimed that Jesus had a relationship with John because he said he loved him. But that's really extending the literature. I think in the case of Calunsuc, he was a catechist. He was someone who was assigned to support and assist the priest, not the church. As a matter of fact, in Guam's history, we had very similar relationships in each of the Catholic churches on the island. There was a catechist that was assigned to support and help the priest. That in, I believe, modern times changed from men to women, I think earlier was women, and then changed to men for obvious reasons, because the priests were having relationships with their housekeepers, and in many cases had children from these housekeepers, and this is all documented. But if you're going to correlate what's happening today with Calunsuc, I don't think.
I'm just saying whether this this started, whether there's any evidence for that.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, anyway, we're going to take a quick break for TV purposes, but then we'll be right back. And now we're back.
That's a very good question. But I can't correlate the two because I've never seen any documentation.
There's no documentation.
Yeah. And at that time, there was never any indication that that's what it was.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I think that is a modern day issue. And unfortunately, a real black eye in the church. And I'm willing to say that.
No, big time. We talk about we talk about this all the time. It's a black eye.
Water?
And so, anyway, so here we are. That was season
Are we back
1.
On?
Yeah. Yes, we're back on. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Season 2.
Season 2. Okay. It's really not so cut and dry in the sense of this is one and this is two, because this is a, how do you call it, a transition, right?
Yeah.
So what we did was, when we put the show together, after Marie Calvo-Mange and I spoke, we decided that all this historical interviews that I had conducted with these individuals, and at first there were about 50 that I had looked at, who should I profile? Because there are many people, Jesse, that understand the history, okay? But there are not that many people who know it in depth.
Sure.
And there's the danger. I couldn't just put somebody on that knows, just one aspect of it. For example, the historical framework has to be a documented framework, has to be with scholars who have looked at the literature, who have spent, a good part of their professional lives reading these materials. Levesque has 20 volumes of the history of Micronesia. These volumes are translations of documents that have been found in numerous locations, in numerous archives. this man has the ability to speak 15 languages.
Sure,
I can't
sure.
even fathom
Sure,
speaking
sure,
two,
sure. Mhm,
you
mhm.
know. But and for some reason, envy, jealousy, I'm not sure, maybe a combination of all
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
just ability, he
Mhm.
was able to take these documents and translate them into English.
Mhm,
That is a wealth of information. William Hernandez and Joe Garrido at the Historic Resource
Mhm,
Division
mhm.
for the Department of Public Parks and Recreation are the ones
Mhm,
that
mhm.
pointed me in that
Sure,
direction
sure.
early in my
Mhm.
study of the history. And they were absolutely on point. Now, you can nitpick everyone's work. Someone's
Mhm.
always going to make a
Sure,
mistake,
sure.
right? So there are some things in translation that Levesque might have mistaken.
Mhm.
One thing that hits me purposeful on the issue of Salvatore's is that according to one of the documents that I read in Levesque's publications, while Salvatore's was being killed, they
Mhm.
called it being baptized in blood,
Mhm,
okay?
mhm.
That's what one of the priests who came here, the king sent a priest
Sure.
here. What is going on Guam? You know,
Mhm.
we're reporting everything seems to be hunky-dory.
Yeah.
The church is supposed to be growing in membership. Why are they killing the priest?
Yeah.
That's a valid
Sure,
reason,
sure,
right?
sure.
So what the priests were sending, the reports they were sending to
More
Spain,
contrary to what's on the ground.
contrary to
Yeah.
what's happening on the ground.
Mhm.
And you know what? You were talking earlier about war reparation.
Sure, sure.
They're saying one thing, but there really is a different
Yeah,
issue.
that's right.
Okay,
That-
they're
yeah.
telling you what you want to hear.
Sure. Mhm.
For obvious reasons. If
Mhm.
I was a politician, you think I'm going to tell you this is dead? No.
Yeah.
I mean, my
I need
whole
to get reelected.
yeah, my whole
Sure.
political life would go down the drain.
Sure, sure.
However, it's not really a lie either,
Mhm.
because it's alive as long as the discussion is there. So Madeline can't tell you that it's dead out of respect. It's not. It's still an issue as long as there's a possibility.
Mhm.
All she's trying to do is find an avenue.
Mhm.
So going back to historical, in the history, how could Salvatore's have baptized Matapang's child, okay, and I'm going to quote that, child, if he's being killed?
Yeah.
So we think, oh, he baptized it and then they killed him. Well, if you read the historical accounts, he was actually killed before he
Before
baptized.
baptized,
So
yeah.
he couldn't have baptized him. So the question is who
Yeah,
baptized the
yeah,
child?
mhm.
Was the child baptized? And whether the child was a male or a female.
Mhm.
Now, I have some of my colleagues who have done their own research dispute the fact that the child was not a male. The child was a female.
Female.
And I
Mhm.
asked Fran Hiesel, who's a Jesuit priest.
Mhm.
I use Fran because he's a Jesuit.
Mhm,
A
mhm.
very scholarly man, very well read, very
Sure,
well
sure. Mhm.
published, okay? And he said, does it matter? Yeah.
Sure.
To me,
Yeah,
it matters.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it's
sure.
just one of those fine points.
Sure,
As
sure,
a researcher, that matters to me.
Mhm.
Now, according to the documentation, they're saying it was a woman, and the reason they're saying it was a girl is because she actually tried to claim for the properties of her father, Matapang, after all was said and done, and they rejected the ownership of the property because
she was-
of him killing.
Mm.
So in that
Okay,
time
yeah.
frame, he lost the right to own the land.
Mhm.
We don't. There are all these different fine issues that we
Sure,
don't really
sure,
pay
sure.
attention. We only know the gloss. He
Mhm.
was killed by because of what?
Mhm.
But
Sure.
there's really much more to the
Yeah.
history.
Mhm.
And like I said, the history is not pretty, but it is what it is,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so, like for one thing, we don't even pay attention to the fact that when Salvatore's and his mission came here, the general in the Manila
Mhm.
was against the whole project because
Sure.
it was expensive, and he
Mhm.
didn't see why are we investing this kind of
Yeah.
money in Guam? The population's not there.
Mhm.
That's not why Salvatore's came here.
Mhm. Mhm.
If it would have been 5, he would have think he would have fought.
So the story of Salvatore's that we know of, that is commonly heard in regards to the child and us thinking it was a male child, that
No, everyone thinks it's a woman.
Yeah.
It was a male.
But in that sense, so we're going on the church's history then.
Pretty much,
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And you know, the church has vested interest in
Sure,
being involved in
Sure,
history,
sure,
right?
yeah,
You have priests who claim to be historians. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
they make it
Mhm.
their business because
Mhm.
they have an interest in
Mhm.
protecting the church's
Sure, sure.
public relations. But I don't think that you need to public relation anything that Salvatore's did.
Sure.
I can say one thing, Cullen Sod defended Salvatores.
Salvatores.
Now, Cullen Sodd's actions, you know, I'm not into making saints,
Sure.
but if that's saintly, if that is
saintly action.
a saintly action, if
Yeah,
you will, or
yeah.
you know, then good for him that he's a saint.
Mhm.
But a lot of this sainthood thing is very political to begin with.
Mm.
You know, I mean, look at the population in the Philippines compared
Sure.
to Guam. Do we have the clout to be able to push for something like this? We've tried. We have failed. Salvatores is still not a saint.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then and I don't know the process well enough, and I'm not trying to mock it, but I know that there are all these requirements that have to be done, and Fran Hizo was brought to Guam to be able to work this, to be able to correct this, to be able to push this through. This is what Bishop Aparon wanted. Now, if that's going to happen, I don't know, but I think that, you know, the awkward part of this is what's happening now in the church.
Okay.
That makes things really strange.
We're going to take a quick break again for our viewing audience. Now we're back.
Okay, so you know, so going that route, this is a real sticky issue right now, because how do you separate the two?
Sure.
I understand your question about, you know, did the things that are happening currently in the church happen then? I can't answer that question.
Sure.
That's not in literature.
Sure.
I've never seen anything. All I know is what is in literature is that the priests were having relationships with their housekeepers, and they have known to have children. One of our aunts from Agate, Chartreuse, her grandfather is the son of a priest, and a Chamorro woman. And there are many examples of that.
Sure.
People winked at it.
Sure.
You know, I mean, there was a time when you couldn't even raise this. You couldn't even ask this question. Today, it's gone. That day is gone.
Yeah.
Now we want people to answer for their actions. You know, because it's gone too far.
Sure.
It's a crime.
Absolutely.
Pedophilia is a crime.
Yeah.
But so is adultery. Yet you don't see people getting divorced for adultery. It's for unreconcilable differences.
And this is not in what you covered, but basically, yeah. I mean, some of the names have come out. You know, Bishop Flores' name has come out. Polly Wan, whose name has come out. These are names when I was growing up that I heard them having relationships outside. I've heard of that. Okay, now I didn't hear the details, the pedophile portion of it. We didn't hear that. Now whether that's true or not, I guess that will be determined. But we've heard those names when growing up. We heard those names, and so I'm not surprised. Keen is not surprised that these names have now resurrected again. But what is surprised is the allegations of something we've never heard about. So anyway, I digress.
Well, no, you don't digress. You're still on point, and the reason you're still on point is because this is very characteristic of the Chamorro people. I mean, and I say Chamorro because that's who I am, right? But I think people in general really don't want to know the truth. And if it's not happening to you, you're not. I mean, I feel badly when I first read of that boy's mom who, on his dying bed, learned of this, and he had no recourse until then. He just didn't want to take it with him. But would she have listened?
Probably not.
I mean, obviously he felt that he could not tell her until he couldn't hold it any longer. And when you're victimized, Jess, whether you're a battered wife or you're someone who's somebody sexually molested, that's a very deep. Very, very deep issue, and that's not something you just talk over and bring up in a dining table.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, you because victims are made to believe it's their fault, and victims are made to believe that no one will believe them.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, because I you know, in watching series, and I'm a loyal follower of your programs, because there's a lot of things that I've heard bits and pieces about, and what you've done, you fill in those bits and pieces, okay?
Correction, I don't.
Well,
the scholars that were
interviewed did. Your show has done that.
Thank
your
you.
show has done that, okay? Thank you for the correction. Your show has done that. So I'm understanding even more. But in what you do, or what you have done, what you continue to do, in our celebration of being Chamorro Month and things like that, and museums, and there's a lot more awareness now of the people, on who we are, okay?
The timing's incredible.
Yeah. But there's components of that that are missing as well. What you have done, what your research has done in compiling that, that's a big part missing in that. And
Absolutely.
You know, and that's what I'm saying, like it or not, because some of the things that you guys have researched that came out, it's disturbing. I don't like to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But it is. That's what it is. I mean, even the blacks, in regards to their history in the United States, you know, a lot of their history, it's not good. I mean, it doesn't. I mean,
it's
really,
human.
Yeah, it's human. But you cannot erase that, because that's what it is, and you have to include it in their history, in their making, in their peopling, you know, in the United States, just like us. So, my thing when I'm watching this, I said, you know, the next step you should do, you gotta approach Hollywood, man. This is but this has to be, there has to, you know, like Roots, right? Like Roots. This has to be a Chamorro version of that. And, you know, maybe a mini series or something like that. It's got to be. It's got to be part of the museum. It's got to be, you know, put that theater to use and use that. Now maybe compiling all this into one motion picture or mini series. It's got to be. Like it or not, it is who we are, and we can see ourselves on that. I give kudos to all the folks that celebrate, you know, our indigenous movements and things like that, right? And that's great to see our start. But, you know, I have evolved, and I cannot really relate to that, because even growing up, but what you have brought, what your research have brought, I can relate more, like it or not, good or bad.
Well, I think,
you know?
and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Most people, I mean, I've interviewed, like Brandon Cruz.
Sure.
In the series on the Post,
Mm-hmm.
I have written since May 21st,
Mm-hmm.
every single day profiled, did a feature
Sure.
of each of these scholars,
Sure.
and spoke about the highlights that they
Mm-hmm.
brought, the merits they brought to the project. Brandon Cruz said that one of the difficulties that he's had as a artisan and a chanter is that people mock him and say, where did this chanting come from?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is very much our culture.
Sure.
But if you don't know
Sure.
the historical framework, you're going to say that's not part of our culture.
That's right.
The historical framework and the documentation show that is what Salvatore saw.
Mm-hmm.
He saw these group of women in a circle, and they were just swaying, and they were using body percussion, and they were chanting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's take that into modern times. The church, for whatever reason, wanted to really change our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So what we know today, we don't know that part of it, because that's
right.
lost, right?
That's lost, yeah.
But that changed from the chanting that you see now in Ifan Lalayan, from that kind of chanting into the rosary. It's a chant.
Sure.
It's a constant, repetitive statement of facts, right?
Sure.
You're just saying something over and over and over. Oral history in chanting transfers historical material down generationally. So this stopped, and it changed into the ritual of a rosary, and that's how that was the process of Catholicism. It went from this cultural practice to this cultural practice, replacement. Right? But if you don't know your history, then you're going to say it's all fake, and it's not all fake.
And that's what I'm talking about. But anyway, we got to say goodbye to our
adios, everybody.
Online viewers.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much. But we're going to continue actually on radio here with Rlene Steffy, of course, season 3.
This guy, I got to learn from him.
season